Alright, we're starting this again. I had to re-record this because somebody called me and it went on for just a bit too long for me to edit it out. I'm lazy like that, and I don't care. So, sorry if this whole series lacks a bit of continuity. I might look a bit fatter, a bit slimmer, a bit sadder. I don't really know. I'm shooting part 3 right now, a week after part 2, because I had to go to this retreat that the school sort of arranged for the freshmen. And that's a whole other video. I've got some stuff to talk about it. I have some footage, and I have some interesting anecdotes to talk about. Nothing too damaging, and nothing that will actually ruin my social life, necessarily. But yeah, I think we're still only a quarter way through this, which really does indicate just how many I bought. I'm regretting it just a little bit, maybe just a little bit. But hey, I'm still in my early 20s. This is the perfect time to make mistakes. I'll just never do it again. And yeah, we're still in the D's. Let's get through the D's. 20 minutes on the timer. This video is already a minute long. That is not a good sign. And let's start with, so after Don't Look Now is Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. Probably, maybe it's my favorite, late Akira Kurosawa film. I haven't seen Kagemusha yet, so I'm not really sure. But I love the cover. This really is kind of like the most beautiful image in the entire movie. I love the fact that that it's drawn. It kind of adds that childlike innocence to it. And the thing is, if you actually put like the actual image from the movie on the cover, it will probably look kind of cheap, because in the movie it works because the rest of the film does look like that. But on, like, the image alone might look just a bit cheap as a cover of a pristine DVD franchise. But anyways, the movie. Now, I think this is one of those movies that I'll like more as time goes by, because as of right now, I focus more on story and characters. I feel like if I watch more movies, I'll focus more on visuals and the look of the film. And this film definitely nails that department, but I really, really, really like this movie, but I can't really say it's one of my absolute favorites. But the reason I bought this is not necessarily because of the movie. It's because of the special features. Because this has a 150-minute documentary on the making of this movie alone. And considering just how crazy the movie looks, and just how beautiful it is, and just how layered and nuanced it is when it comes to how the stories intertwine with each other thematically, I want to see just what was going on in Kurosawa's mind when he was making this. Was it just him, like, recreating his dreams? Is it much more than that? I want to know. And the second thing on this damn thing is, like, obviously there's, like, interviews galore, but then there's this documentary, a 50-minute documentary, which is still solid, a 50-minute documentary on Kurosawa called Kurosawa's Way. And it has interviews with Martin Scorsese, Alejandro Inarritu, Bernardo Bertolucci, and fucking Miyazaki. I want to see Miyazaki talk about Kurosawa. That's something that I need to see. So, yeah, that documentary alone, I didn't even need a 2.5 hour documentary on the making the movie. That was an extra thing. That 50-minute documentary is going to be interesting. So, that's why I bought it. I don't regret it, buying it at all. And now we go to the E's, finally. Election. This is one of the newer ones, as far as I'm concerned. I think, yeah, it's one of the newer ones. And here's the thing. I'm a Woody Allen fan. I love his movies, especially his 70s stuff and some of the stuff he did in the 80s. But I know I am also very uncomfortable with some of the allegations that has been thrown towards him. And I know a lot of other people are also uncomfortable with those too. Now, with me, I'm able to sort of differentiate the art and the artist, because it's not like Woody Allen was solely responsible for making Annie Hall or Manhattan. There are other people in there too, so I can always enjoy the movies and sort of ignore his personal life and the issues that he has. But some people can't do that. Some people aren't able to differentiate the art of the artist. Maybe, some people can't watch Roman Polanski movies or Woody Allen films. And that's fine. I don't think there's any problem with that. That's your choice. Now, some of those people, some of those same people might say, well, I still love Woody Allen's style and his humor. I just don't want to see his movies. I don't want to support his art. What can I do? Well, one of the easiest things that you can do is to just find replacements for him. And the thing is that Woody Allen's so influential that you can easily find somebody who was influenced by him and is also making really good movies. And a very good example of that would be Alexander Payne. And admittedly, this is not necessarily stylistically indicative of Woody Allen's influence on him. I would say starting with maybe About Schmidt, or like definitely with Sideways. Sideways is where the Woody Allen influence really kicks in. This is more like a Woody Allen film. If Woody Allen directed American Pie, and it was about like a student election, this would what it would look like. This would be what it would look like. Is that even grammatically correct? I don't even know. And I don't know. I always really liked this movie. It at first I thought, okay, it's a pretty good film. I'm not sure if I love it, but the more as time went by, I just thought, this is a solid movie. This is really good, and it's really funny. It's got one of the funniest things that I've ever seen Matthew Broderick in, which is this scene where he's like having sex with his wife, and he's trying to like they're trying to have a kid, and he doesn't really love his wife. He's like thinking of other women, and at first he's thinking about this woman who's living next door. And then he accidentally thinks about Reese Witherspoon, which is creepy because Reese Witherspoon plays a high school student here. But the way Reese Witherspoon says, "fuck me," is one of the funniest things that I've ever seen in any movie. So yeah, I do think this is underrated. This is really good. And it's got a documentary on the making of the film. It's gotta be interesting. Like, it's got the whole cast and crew. I do think Matthew Broderick is a much more interesting person in real life than as an actor, so that might be interesting. It's got Alexander Payne's UCLA thesis film, which is always interesting to watch. I love watching early films made by really famous directors. You can just see like small things that's like still rough and unpolished, but is clearly him. And the commentary with Payne. I mean, yeah, sure, that's fine. That's great. It's not. Oh, there's like a local news report on the film's production. That might be fun. So yeah, not much to say about it, or maybe I did say a lot about it. I think I said more about the whole Woody Allen thing more so than the movie. This is a no-brainer. Eraserhead. Do I even need to talk about this movie? I think everybody and anybody who cares about films, anybody who cares about David Lynch, obviously, has talked about this movie to death. I loved it the first time I saw it. The second time I saw it, I fell asleep. I want to see it a third time just to see if I love it more so than I did the first time. Or maybe I hate this movie. I don't really know. And I have heard that this film becomes a completely different monster of a film after you become a father, which is something that I'm not yet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens to me in about 10, 20, 30 years, maybe never. I'm not really sure. There's like a bunch of short films by Lynch, like 6 short films by Lynch. That, like I said, I love short movies. That would be interesting. A 2001 documentary by Lynch, by himself, on the making of the film. That would be interesting too. There is a new documentary featuring the actors and just a lot of the people, and a bunch of interviews. Kind of a basic Criterion Blu-ray thing. I did buy this on a cheaper price. I think this is used. There's a few dents here and there. It's perfectly fine. It's still a fucking 4K digital restoration, even if it's a used Blu-ray. Unless they broke it in half, it's still gonna look great. So yeah, great movie, great Blu-ray. Used, but hey, it was for a cheaper price. That is totally worth it. As for Fake, Orson Welles' best film in his late career, like right before he became a parody of himself. I love this movie. I'm not sure if I love this more than Citizen Kane or like Chimes of Midnight. I do think his work from the 40s and the 50s are nearly untouchable, but this comes close. I know that I know a person who says that this is her favorite Orson Welles movie, which is there's a solid argument to be made for that. It's such an interesting documentary. I don't think I've ever seen a documentary like this. Ever. The fact that he just kind of toys with the concept of a movie and the concept of the documentary style and the concept of telling a story in a documentary. It's so interesting to watch, and it kind of mixes his love of filmmaking and magic, because he was a big fan of, you know, magic tricks and whatnot in real life. It kind of mixes those two together, and it is really good. There's an introduction by Peter Bogdanovich. That's great. Bunch of interviews. There's a documentary about Orson Welles, which is and about Welles's unfinished projects, which would be also very interesting. And a 60-minute interview with Clifford Irving about his Howard Hughes autobiography hoax. Okay, so it's basically just a bunch of special features that's gonna just gonna expand the story that Orson Welles was trying to say in this film. And the cover is just a basic cover. You can find this cover on almost any DVD for F or Fake, but it is a very striking image. It is a very good image. The little smoke in between his fingers. It is a very cool image, and is just that piercing look. It's great. I didn't talk about the two covers here. This is probably like the most famous image anyway, so I don't mind that. It's a fine image. It's a fine cover. It's a fun looking cover. I like the colors. It's colorful. Here's a movie that might be divisive. I think most people agree that it looks great and that it's probably... I know this sounds stupid. It's objectively a great film, whatever that means, but I know a lot of people find this movie to be really boring. I always found this movie to be really kind of haunting in a very submersive way. And that's Ingmar Bergman's Fanny and Alexander. This has all the... It's got the television version, it's got the theatrical version, it's got all the special features, just all of it. Just the making of Fanny and Alexander. A conversation between Bergman and a film critic on like Swedish television. Bunch of documentaries about Bergman. It looks great. Like look at those imagery. Look at that imagery. The movie really does look amazing. It's an amazing looking film. It's a strangely haunting film. At times it's disturbing. It's beyond beautiful. It clearly influenced a lot of very visual-minded directors throughout the years. Probably also Kubrick when he made like Eyes Wide Shut. And I think it might be my favorite Ingmar Bergman movie. Oh, no, there's Persona, obviously Persona. Persona's number one. This might be number two. And it's easily his best film, like, post-1980. So... yeah, anybody who cares about Bergman probably has already seen this movie. Anybody who cares about movies should watch this. As long as you're ready for like a 3-hour whole... Oh. Okay, so the theatrical version is 3 hours and 8 minutes, which is the version that I saw. The television version is 5 hours and 20 minutes. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that one, but yeah. This is also like a basic cover for the movie, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, it's a solid Blu-ray. It's a solid mini box set. Okay, so the next one is going to be interesting. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is one of the early ones that they made, and when I learned about the Criterion collection for the first time, this was the one I wanted to buy the most, because at the time I really loved this movie. I still really like this movie. I love the cover. Look at that. That original art for the concept of the book. It's so good. What else is there? There's like a bunch of audio commentary. There's one audio commentary with Hunter S. Thompson, which is the one I really want to hear. And there's a short documentary on Hunter himself. Not necessarily a making of the film, but just a bunch of interviews and a look at the controversy over the screenwriting credit. Okay, that might be interesting. That might be fun. And, I mean, what can I say about the movie? It's one of the best cult movies in the 90s. I know a lot of people also really hate this movie. Roger Ebert despised this film. I know, like, I lended my DVD of it, because I do have a DVD of it. It's a very, very cheap DVD that only has the movie in it. I had a DVD of it. I lended it to this couple that I knew, and um, the guy the guy thought it was very interesting. The woman hated it. So I'm not sure if that says anything. It's just something interesting that I have about that I have in the past about this movie. And what do I think of it? I think it's pretty good. It's solid. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I probably need to rewatch it. It's Terry Gilliam. It's just interesting. I love Terry Gilliam in general. I love his visual aesthetic. I really don't have much to say about the movie because it's been a while since I've seen it. I just really wanted to buy it. Five Easy Pieces, one of the best American New Wave films. Maybe Jack Nicholson's best performance, like ever. It's easily his most subtle, because I feel like as time went by, he was always a great actor, but his acting kind of became a bit over the top. But here, it's nothing but subtlety. It's also just such a beautiful film. It's so heartbreaking the way you just see this guy bearing his soul. And it really is all thanks to Jack Nicholson's performance. And it's got a lot of really quiet moments. The quiet moments where you just kind of contemplate where the character is at that point in his life. And those quiet moments really explains a lot about the actions that he makes at the end of the movie, throughout the film, the way he talks, the way he is. And I don't know, I feel like if you live in the Midwest, and if you have lived in the Midwest in America back in the 70s, this film probably has a much more stronger attachment to you. It probably speaks more to you than it will ever speak to me, but it's a good enough of a film where it does speak to me also, just on a character basis. And of course the dialogue, because it's American New Wave, because it's, Hollywood trying to be more modern and actually succeeding at it, it has a very sharp edge to it, and I love it. And it very is much so of its time, which doesn't hinder the film. Let's see, there's like a lot of documentaries on the film, a lot of interviews with the actors. I would love to see interviews with Jack Nicholson and Karen Black. That would be great. Yeah, just a bunch of stuff. These are solid special features, and I do love this movie a lot. If anybody hasn't seen it, they need to see it. And this is a nice cover. I love this little thing going through it. Like that alone explains a lot about where this character is in his life. Can you tell that I love this movie? Because I really do. And we might be able to talk about 2 more movies here, so this might not be the last one for this video. We've talked about, this would be the 8th one, which is solid. The Beatles, Hard Day's Night. It's almost impossible to find a solid DVD for this movie in Korea, so I'm glad that the Criterion decided to make this into one of their DVDs. I love this movie. This is where, A Hard Day's Night, that album, really is where the Beatles kind of found their footing as songwriters, I feel like. With their previous albums like Please Please Me or Meet the Beatles, yeah, those are solid songs, but there are some tracks in there where you're just yeah, they're just trying to recreate what Roy Orbison and Elvis Presley was doing, and especially with Roy Orbison, who was a huge influence on them. I don't know. Not necessarily a fan of those first 2 albums, but I feel like The Hard Day's Night was really where they found their proper footing as amazing songwriters. Hard Day's Night, that song's great. Can't Buy Me Love, If I Fell, which is just a beautiful song, which is probably my favorite song on the whole album. And this movie, I love that Ringo starts in the band, everybody is up on front, jumping, and Ringo's just kind of in the back doing he's in mid-jump, and it just looks awkward. I wonder if that's intentional. I don't really know. But this is a great image. Great image. It's a solid image. It does remind me a lot of the Help image, kind of. And I don't know. It's got a bunch of documentaries on the making of the film. Probably a bunch of documentaries just sort of documenting the first time they came to America, which is always interesting to watch. And what can I even say about this movie? It's before they started hating each other. It's before they kind of became miserable as human beings just because of the amount of pressure they had. It's before they became they were probably very serious singer-songwriters at this time as well, but this was before they became really serious about it. Like, this was before when they realized they could really change the world, that they could really revolutionize everything. And it sort of captures this much more innocent time in their career before anything happened. So it does have this sense of genuine bliss to it, and just watching like a bunch of like teenage girls screaming while they're singing songs is just sort of this fascinating time capsule of, you know, fandoms and how they sort of were back in the day and how they sort of are now. And it's just a great documentation about celebrity culture and just how much we fawn over celebrities and all that. And there's only 30 seconds left on the timer, so I'm probably going to end it there. And that'll be the last movie for this one. And yeah, we still have a lot to go. We're in the middle of the S's. I mean the H's. So yeah, let's see what... These are not alphabetically correct, and now they are. So let's see what happens now. In the fourth part.